Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting, another wondrous Propagandacast from the host, Imperial Dane, featuring today a 1 vs 1 on Kholodny Ferma. We shall be watching Warboss fighting for the Germans for the 5th Panther Division, going up against WmdNevix fighting for the Soviet Union and the 13th Tank Corps. Infanterie Company swiftly up there for Warboss, Grenadiers following up. Schnell. And of course a big thanks to all of the people who are sending in replays to me, including Warboss, but this is not one because he didn't actually remember to attach the replay. Haven't heard anything from him then since. Might have been this one I found, so who knows? If not, oh well. I'm sure he'll send it in anyways eventually. And of course, you know, rule of thumb applies. 1 vs 1s, 2 vs 2s, no 3 vs 3s or 4 vs 4s, simply because there's too much for me to follow and try and keep track of. Plus, of course, as you throw more players into the mix, it generally also tends to be a little less exciting for different reasons. First Grenadier Squad arrives, Pioneer Squad heading north as Grenadiers head south, so it looks like Warboss is trying a bit more of a broad front approach for the time being, which as the Germans is something you have to be careful about. Also noting here that Nevix is quite fondly wiring off as much as possible, trying to deny cover, direct approaches to his opponent. Not a bad idea, that. Certainly nice to see that, something we've been missing a bit lately, some proper barbed wire usage. Conscripts arriving steadily for Nevix. And the Schwer's MG-140 moving up, looks like to be supporting the Grenadiers. Apparently he's expecting most of the fighting down there. North approach, in fact, is completely untouched, where the Pioneers are having a nice walk in the sun, skipping along like schoolboys, equipped with submachine guns, which rather ruins the whole metaphor. But either way, conscripts engaging the Grenadiers, supported by combat engineers. MG-42 needs to quickly move up. Although, of course, logging around that big thing's going to take time, and looks like someone's firing a bit too wildly, blowing off the branches of the tree, but not quite hitting the fascists. Yuri, you're supposed to be shooting at them, not the trees. But I hate trees, Boris. I hate trees. And there we go, the Company Squad went down on the retreat. Absolutely dreadful right there. A bit too slow to retreat, but Nevix flanking about there, vaulting over cover. Nice, that's definitely some very nice aggressive play we're seeing there from Nevix. Splendid, wondrous, actually seeing some vaulting. That's something that does tend to be a bit ignored. And there we go, MD-42 trying to deal with this, but now it's actually surrounded. Conscripts here could Ura up. Ura, and there we go, rushing past the MD-42, causing Warboss quite some consternation. Grenadiers could also go down on retreat. Vengeance for the combat engineers lost. And there we go, the MD-42 also rushed away. None of them, though, seem to be going down, but still quite a force of conscripts right here, and only one Grenadier squad to try and hold back the Soviet tide. Brutal fighting has evolved. Another conscript squad heading into the center, taking up the victory point there. Pioneers continue their work undisturbed up the north. Possibly even taking some time to stop and smell the flowers. And another combat engineer squad arrives for Nevix. Hopefully with a slightly higher rate of survival than the previous squad. And moving up pretty aggressively. Looks like he's wanting to put some pressure on Warboss by going for one of the closest strategic points as possible, which would certainly draw the attention of Warboss, as usually there's some sort of reaction psychologically that if you take a point very close to the opponent's base, the opponent tends to get rather a bit freaked out about it. Sensibly enough, I suppose, but it can also be used a bit aggressively to throw your opponent off a bit guard. But for now, it has been contained by a single Grenadier squad, although the conscripts do hold a better position for the time being. Ooh, running up there. Can they? No! There we go, full retreat apparently. Nevix does not have the Molotov to burn away the fascists and their sins. Instead, he opts though for retreat, realizing this is a bad position, just retreats. Good unit preservation right there displayed by Nevix. Meanwhile, the Grenadiers here are not doing so well. Wooden carts and boxes proving not quite the same formidable defense as an actual building. And thus, the last two remainders retreat. And we are already seeing here that Warboss is taking up. Good. He's been having a resounding success here in the north with the response from Nevix. But looks like Nevix is now pushing forwards with a bit of glee. Support weapon company up, and that could also likely mean, yes indeed, the Maxim machine gun.
are ready for action.
And there we go, a bit of bow play from NevX, going for cut-off point. Splendid. Well done, NevX. Immediately rendering all of this useless. MG42 down there, companies could try and flank it if they get aware of this, of course, as soon as the assault commences. And there we go. And there we go, the companies are going to sneak up. Maxim opening up as well from the nearby no, not the nearby building, but still getting the grenadiers quickly suppressed. And there we go, MG42 in trouble. Flammenwerfer unleashed from close range at the back. Veterans 1 for the MG42 grenadiers begin to take a bit of losses. But looks like all of them will successfully escape. Although some with burn wounds. So NevX is at the moment on the back foot. A second Maxim, so NevX is rather fond of trying to stop the German infantry and is thus preparing for it with as much gusto as he can muster. He's careful, getting spotted here. Maxim quickly sets up, and grenadiers immediately find themselves opened up on the middle of the street. Could be a good spot for a mine there for NevX, by the way. In fact, he mines there. Good work, NevX. Warboss having the like to mechanize company up. Half track on the way. Looks like Warboss is a bit reorganizing, preparing for a fresh push. That is good. And NevX finally looks to be resorting to doing something in the north. Lots of mines here, but getting spotted in the process, though. Will Warboss react to this and get the hazard removal package, or will he think that's nothing at all? And these grenadiers are not having too much of a fun time getting stuck by the Maxim. Another grenadier squad advances, but quickly comes under the wrath of the Maxim as well. And there we go. Half tech on the way, and going to become a Flammenpanzerwagen. That's definitely going to spell bad news. And heavy mortar, thus meaning guards motor doctrine. Currently there's pretty much only one doctrine offering the 120mm heavy mortar, and that is guards motor. Though it was actually quite a common mortar throughout the war on both sides. Russian and German, that is. Also with the German allies. In fact, the Axis forces and the Soviets were generally quite fond of it. And the Germans were pretty quick, in fact, to pretty much just replicate it and basically rip off the design. Using the flamethrower half-attack to try and cut off and wipe out a conscript corps on the retreat. A bold and tricky, sneaky move there by Warboss. Didn't quite work off, but was close. He is going to be in a bit of trouble, though, since he hasn't gotten anything that can stop the flamethrower half-track really solidly, and that is what is a problem. Oh, actually dodged the mine in the set. The grenadiers hit the mine, and they are quick to reinforce from the half-track, of course. So what shall NevX do to handle this threat against the motherland? Ooh, very close there with that 120mm mortar round. Can do a lot of damage. Reinforcing. I wonder how long until a field gun or something else. Half-track actually taking a bit of damage there from the rear from the Maxim. Oh, anti-tank grenade went off, down to half health. Half-track is a much easier target. Though, of course, it's still going to be a bit of a bother dealing with, considering he's only got rifles, anti-tank grenades, Maxims, and mortars. Not impossible, though. Not impossible. Nothing is impossible for the one with the imagination and the will. Attempt to flank here with the MG42 instead ends up being shot at by Maxim. And in fact, yes, there we go. MG42 is pretty much pointless now as it's pinned. Flame for a half tank, gaining veterans 1, but really close to collapsing. And this MG42 just needs to get out of there, Warboss. Forsyth, taking up by the looks of it. 3 Grenadier squads, 1 upgrade with a light machine gun. About time. Interesting to note, though, he's only gotten a flamethrower half-track from the light mechanized company. Nothing else, no packs, no Panther guns, no scout cars. Just a half-track. Looks like he killed his own men right there. Someone might get accused of being a counter-revolutionary right there, or at least after the battle, if he survives.
Yes? Pioneers ready for anything. How can we help?
And there we go, looks like the Grenadiers are on a mission to try and stop it, but it's... Oh, that was bloody quick. 2 Grenadiers dropped in a second. Maximum conscripts proving ever nasty. And another Grenadier squad trying to flank from the north. A light machine gun, but perhaps realises the situation has gone a bit sour. Quickly runs into a building for nearby cover, though should be careful, of course, with a heavy mortar nearby. Flampanzer getting reinforced. German mortar, which has not been deployed, interestingly enough. And it has got to be a bit careful around with the Soviet heavy mortars, since that's going to be very likely to knock out the German mortar if it's not careful. And there we go, actually our Panzer Grenadier squad, also noting tier 3 and popping over to Nevix, who's actually forgone a field gun. Instead we're seeing the Tankovi battalion command going up, and you should in fact be able to get a T-34 or a T-70, whatever it desires. T-34 might be able to be a bit more effective against the half-track and could still, you know, do quite nicely against the German infantry. Though would be a little less swift. Conscripts running into a bit of problems there with the Flampanzerwagen. And there we go. He goes for the T-70. T-70 light tank. Might have expected a T-34. There you go. Can't have everything. 5th Panzer Division Panzer Grenadiers advancing under cover of mortar fire. And note, I do believe he's not bombarding, just having the mortar fire on its own, which tends to mean it's actually more accurate that way against infantry, where you usually want, you know, to fire full barrages when you're usually facing off against some greater threat, or basically want to deny an area to the opponent. If you have a specific target, let the mortar crew handle it itself. The barrage, of course, is for more general bombardments, but figure that might as well be a good tip nonetheless, in case someone missed out on it. And there you go, the T-70 light tank coming out. There was also the T-60, which was equipped with some rather heavy machine guns, I believe. T-70, though, in the end, was replaced by the T-34-76, since that could just as well function as a reconnaissance tank, the Soviets decided, and they basically just prefer to focus production on as few tanks as possible. Quick Panther fast there, though T-70 still tears into the Grenadiers. They need to get out of there. Maxim joining in. Another squad flanking up. Looks like they lose heart and pull back. Nice going back and forth here on the map, though. MD in the nearby building. Mortar could stand to move up a bit closer. This would actually be a good position, close to the front line, but still there'd be something covering against a direct assault. And of course, note, you can do crew repairs, although this one is a bit more expensive than this one. As basically the T-70 has its own repair ability, which can actually move while it's doing so, whereas this one, cheaper, actually also stops movement and is also doctrinal, but still can be quite handy to know in certain cases, you know, that you can repair a T-70 if it's got into a bit of a bind. And there you go, bombardment on the way. Looks like he's going to try and clear out that area. Maxim a bit bold up here in the north, but encountering the Flampanzerwagen and are forced to retreat in the face of such devious resistance. Nice hit there on the mortar crew. And there we go, Grenadiers moving in, trying to see if they can't Panther fast, but they are taking heavy losses to the machine gun and the 45mm gun on the T-70. And there we go. German mortar firing into the mess, wildly actually causing disruption and forcing NevX to actually pull back his troops. T-70 going in there. Half-track needs to consider retreating. And what is this? Mark vehicle of all the things. He's going to see if he can't force down that half-track. And I just thought for a moment the Mark vehicle aircraft for some reason was shooting at the T-70. I really, my mind just froze for a brief moment, but no. Nice use there of Mark vehicle, by the way. Perhaps a bit excessive, considering it was just a flame for a half-track, but clearly NevX was not taking any chances. Also noting a heavy Panther core up. Splendid, not just the usual less imaginative from some players just spamming up Panzer IVs. Machine gun crew in dire straits. Good usage there of the T-70 light tank, by the way. No mines though. Grenadiers on a southern push. Little to resist. And a field gun finding out from NevX. And the T-70 launches into the center. Being a bit careful. And there we go. He could try and actually save up for a pair of T-30-45s. That could actually prove quite violently handy. At least that will be my thought on the subject matter. In the meanwhile, the T-70 continues its reign of terror. The 45mm gun actually being quite a common gun. In fact, some of the earlier Soviet tanks, like the T-26 and the BT-7. Also, the T-70 rather suffered from a one-man turret, which rather meant it didn't quite have the same rate of fire as it could actually have in the actual war. That was as useful. It was rather the same problem the French tanks suffered from, which basically meant that the command always had to act as the gun ass and loader, which does tend to place some pressure on the poor bastard. And then we got a Panther arriving, Panzer Kampfwagen 5, 4-color German disruption camouflage. Looks rather splendid. Building collapses. T-70 tearing into the Panzer Grenadiers. And the Panther moving out in response, also upgraded with the anti-aircraft machine gun, as that was really the purpose initially of such machine gun mounted on top. Of course, someone found out they were also pretty handy against ground units of the squishier kind. T-70 though is pretty much buggered. And there we go, abandoned. Panther scores a kill. Panther moves ahead, comes under fire from the nearby field gun. And there we go, another Mark vehicle. Splendid timing, although he might have wanted to wait a bit more, drawing it in before doing it. And we're also noting he's actually not going for a T-34-85 pair. Instead, he's going for the Mechanized Armor Compania, meaning the Su-85. Oh. And looks like the Panther's machine gun actually shot it down. Impressive. Tends to be a bit rare that it does so, but it can happen.
HMG crew is ready.
But I had not expected that one.
The enemy is taking what we have secured.
And there we go. Likely going to see the Su-85. One of the favourites for Soviets when it comes to dealing with the armour, of course. Likely why he went for the Panther instead. Also, T-70 tank has been accrued. Splendid, splendid. But I imagine this is a bit more of, thinking ahead, going, perhaps if Panther IVs are so easily dealt with by the Su-85, maybe, just maybe, instead of complaining my arse off on the forums, I should try for something bigger. Perhaps something like the Panther with better frontal armour, better speed than the Panther IV, and better range. I wonder if maybe that might not increase my chances of success with a better tank. Let us see if Warboss does right in thinking this. Of course, you also need to handle it well, but, still. Button grenade here, doing a bit of cannon, and we're seeing smoke up. So that likely means Spearhead Doctrine, I believe, from his case. Popping over, and yes, indeed, Spearhead. Also believe it's time for the mid-game analysis. Current situation is a bit 50-50 in terms of territorial holdings, although slightly in favour of Warboss. Of course, he's also now got a Panther out, which is definitely going to cause a bit of a problem there for WmdNevix, although WmdNevix, of course, still has a chance with field guns and SUD5s actually putting it down, in particular if he combines it with a well use of Mark vehicle, in which case the Panther could very well quickly go down in flames and tears. For the time being, though, he needs to put up some pressure in the north as well. He needs to again force Warboss to split up a bit more than what he currently is. He needs to isolate the Panther at the same time. He also needs to be a bit careful with this German mortar, which is active veterancy too. That's quite fortunate for him. Of course, he's still got his own mortars. He could also perhaps try smoking things up a bit and trying to deny the opponents some of their own advantage, or at least allow him to get closer. Interesting also, considering the doctrine he's gone for, he's actually not putting a lot of usage into it. It's basically Mark vehicle with the heavy mortar, no guards infantry as of yet, which could also be, which is always quite a handy combination with Mark vehicle, buttoning it down, marking it up, and allowing the other things to quickly deal with it. So that could have been nice to see that in combination with the rest. Another thing to note is, again, I'm not hugely confident, but if he's going to go for this, he's going to need more than just one SU-85, or at the very least get some SU-76 to add in some just more volume of fire. For Warboss, of course, it's about holding what he has now. It might be an idea to actually mine this area to make it harder for WmdNevix to push up there, and also pressure down there, and also mine this area. The Maxim could be accrued to his own benefit and turned against Soviet forces as well. And of course, considering the doctrine he has, he could try for a Tiger, but rather looks far off. Between now with the Panther on the way, of course, a fragmentation bomb could prove quite handy if deployed in the right spot. And of course, there's also the possibility of a mortar half-tech, whether with Panther that might be a bit much. But still, keep on using this. And as opposed to this, could also be utilised a bit better to get an idea of opponent's positions. Let's return to the fight. Warboss's Panther moving up there. Field gun coming under fire. And there we go, Panther taking a direct hit. And there we go, fragmentation bombing run. Rear hit into the Panther, that is considerably less good. Down to half health. But at the same time, the SU-5 has to be careful when it gets too close, because the Panther is faster. Oh, fragmentation bombing got a bit of a damage, but still, the Panther is faster than the SU-5 itself can actually move. So at this stage, and there we go, also popping a bit of smoke. The SU-85 is in a dangerous situation. Looks like he was able to pull it back fast enough, and looks like Warboss was a bit worried that there might have been something else to support the SU-85 and decides to pull it away, which was actually a good move instead of taking the bait, because a field gun was arriving pretty close, but he managed. Good unit preservation there from Warboss, realising that perhaps, the Panther might not survive much more, and he decides to pull back and repair. But at the same time, though, WmdNevix shouldn't have gone that close with the SU-5. He got a bit too confident there, and the thing to remember about the Panther is it's one of the fastest tanks in the game. Combine that with decent frontal armor and health, and you actually have to be careful around it with an SU-85. It's not like dealing with a Panzer IV, and again, some people seem to have gotten lazy just from fighting Panzer IVs. And of course, some people have just gotten lazy from spamming Panzer IVs against people who didn't know how to fight them. But not Warboss, establishing the Panther, and now a Panzerwerfer. So it looks like the overall meta game is changing a bit more. People are perhaps realising that, perhaps the heavy Panzer Corps does have its usages. And of course, now the question is, how will the Soviet players respond to this? Kennedy is in a bit of trouble. German mortars continues to rake in the kills. Field gun here could do with a bit of crewing. Although it looks like overall WmdNevix is actually beginning to run short of infantry himself, so he might want to consider getting some additional conscripts, or perhaps a guards infantry squad. There we go, the Panzerwerfer unleashing death. And another... No, that's reconnaissance overflight, getting an idea of what WmdNevix is up to. Another combat engineer squad, probably to speed up repairs. A bit quiet. Although we do see NevX bring a bit north to do some work there. Wonderful, wonderful.
Our territory. It's done. The enemy is attempting to steal our sector.
And there we go, the German mortar is dead, which is a bit of a shame. Panzerwerfer continues to fire away from a nicely safe distance. One of many vehicles the Germans had that could fire rockets. And they even had one modifier to actually fire copies of Soviet Katyusha rockets, though those were largely operated by the Waffen-SS with a few exceptions. One of those being the 21st Panzer Division in Normandy.
Reconnaissance flight ready at your disposal. Panzer here.
More troops moving up.
Ready for
Looks like Warboss is preparing for a large push down south. Panthers moving up, supported by infantry. That is how you do it. And there we go, assault has commenced. H-85 moving in, Panther firing in support of this advance. Grenadiers doing what they can. Heavy mortar fire, Panther taking a hit to the rear by the H-85. And there we go, field gun joining in. Oh dear, Panzerfaust. And now the H-85 is an easy target for the Panther, using its speed. And there we go, popping another bit of smoke. Blitzkrieg could also be utilised in this engagement to increase speed and also make it harder to hit for the opponent. But, oh, too slow. And there we go, into tank grenade. If only he had blitzed. He can still blitz actually and try and get out of there. Veteran 2 for the field gun. This is bad news for Warboss's Panther. Very bad news. And there we go, the Panther is actually down, tragically so. And the H-85 goes down as well in response to a Panzerfaust fired to the rear. T-70 gets a bit too close as well and suffers the same treatment. Grenadiers might want to consider retreating in the face of this. And getting close to being able to call in another Panther, which is likely what he's going for. Although Sturm Panzer IV could also be fun to watch. And a nice flank from some Panzer Grenadiers. Catching the heavy mortar crew, which is actually quite low on health. That's bad news for NevX. And a small victory for the Panzer Grenadiers. Maxim MD-42 crew in trouble. And good night. And there we go, and fresh Panther on the way. And the T-70 went down to the Panzerwerfer barrage. Ooh, nasty work there. Nasty work. More combat engineers arriving for NevX. And could this have been... Yes, a squad merger. Lovely work there by NevX. And finally seeing some Guards infantry, though I do think this needs the label too little too late. Tragically so. I think had they been up earlier, I think NevX would have been doing better. Overall.
Requested units have arrived.
Guards infantry coming under heavy fire, troops moving up. And there we go, the second Panzerkampfwagen 5. Oh dear, looks like the Panzer is actually taking mortar fire. That's quite unfortunate. Another hit from the heavy mortar, and that Panzer is going to be lost. Panther moves in. MD42 ultra closer going down. Panther plays it cautiously. Warboss is not going to be rushing in, and heavy mortar continues to fire. German mortar firing in support as well. And there we go. Heavy mortar gets the Panzerwerfer, a glorious hit, gaining it veterans 1 in the process. Lots of mines now going down from Nevix, but in this case it does feel like a little too late. You should have had those up earlier. Plus perhaps also recruit some German equipment. So that's a bit sad. I think if Nevix had a bit more on the toes with his mortaring and mining, he might have done better. But Panther's advancing, needs to be careful around the minefield.
We are losing a sector. We are close to victory. Press on the enemy.
Oh! Managed to crush the entire combat in the Scorpion. I need his threats. Well played there, good sir.
We are ready for action.
And another H-85. No sign of a T-34-85. A bit sad. I think Nevix might have had a bit of luck with those. Oh dear, Panther rushing straight into the minefield. Heavy engine damage. Down to half health. And caught in the field of fire of the H-85 Guards infantry moving in as well. But at the same time, Warboss is clearly in the lead with victory points.
Only have 10 points remaining. Enemy contact. The enemy is taking our territory.
And there we go, main gun destroyed and Panther down. And there we go. Game over. A loss to the Soviet Union and the 13th Tank Corps. A bit of a shame there, Some nice play, but I think overall Nevix made a few mistakes, partly in utilising his H-85s as tanks, in particular against the Panther, which is a bit of a mistake since the Panther does really work much better in those situations due to its higher speed and better armour and health. Another problem, I think, was in part he didn't really utilise as much of his doctrine. It was very much reliant on the heavy mortar, in which case he probably should have gone for at least another one just to really get that volume of fire. Otherwise, he should have gone for some Guards infantry, and I really think he would have benefited from a T-34-85 group, basically to lay down some heavy fire against infantry, and a pair of T-34-85s well supported against a Panther can easily take it out. In particular with marked vehicles, since the T-34-85s will be able to lay down more fire, and of course they'll be harder to take out, due in fact to the fact that they have more health than the Su-85. So there you go. Hope you learned something. Hope you learned a few tricks. I mean, mining does pay off, but again, with Nevix, just like the Guards infantry, it was a bit too little too late. We of course also saw Warboss playing nicely, aggressively all over the map. Good use of infantry, good armor preservation, although sometimes he did get a bit, overly aggressive, a bit reckless, though in some cases we were able to pull it off, other times less so, a bit, a mixed bag there. But this is Imperial Dane saying